Rex, did you have a preference? Did you for first? Do you mind? I know that in the email I said it was 3 minutes. You mind if it's 4 minutes?
I don't care.
Okay.
Whatever.
Do either of you have a preference of who goes first?
No, what are we debating?
If
What
if
are we
there can be
debating?
a goat, if there can be an individual goat in team sports, not specifically Michael Jordan, but just if there can be an individual goat.
Okay.
I usually like going first, so that'd be my 2 cents. But
Yeah, go ahead.
okay,
All right. Are you guys ready to start? Or
Yes, sir.
all right, I'm going to start recording. Hello, everyone. This is Michael Jordan Fans Are the Best, and we have a debate today between NNB Sports and Rex, also known as Political Rex. And NNB Sports is also known as Nick. Today, we'll welcome both of you, and they will be debating the concept and the topic of can there be an individual greatest of all time player in a team sport? Nick, NNB Sports, will be taking the side of there can be, and Rex will be taking the side that there is no such thing as the GOAT in a team sport. How are you guys doing today? Nick, how are you doing today?
doing good. Thanks for having me. We've been talking a little bit to Rex. It's been fun to meet him.
Thank you.
How you doing today, Rex?
Oh, other than hitting the deer, and yeah, for those listening, right before we came on air, I hit a deer with my wife's car, which isn't a cheap car. So, great day.
Awesome. Well, not awesome. Actually, terrible. But but today it'll be 5 4-minute rounds, and NNB Sports will start. Also, NNB Sports has a page. If you haven't seen it before, please check it out and its content. It's got some good stuff on there. Without further ado, are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Just follow the timer on the screen.
Gotcha. Okay, so I watched Politicus Rex's. He had a similar debate to this a couple weeks ago, but it was more about Michael Jordan. We're gonna kind of toss Michael Jordan to the side, and essentially, once Rex has his turn, he can correct me, of course, if he wants. But largely, Rex's point of view, or the way he argues this, is that there are too many variables within a team sport. Specifically, we're arguing more or less basketball here, that a singular GOAT cannot be decided upon, or it's subjective. And I'll be using subjective and variables very interchangeably sometimes when I talk, so keep that in mind as well. But again, the fact that something is subjective or there are too many variables does not mean that there isn't a possibility that there can be an individual GOAT within a team sport. For example, if my own opinion is subjective and I have taken all the variables into account and I come up with my own singular GOAT, does that mean that I still can't say there is or isn't a GOAT? Can hundreds of millions of people, or the fan bases, or all the players who have ever played, the media, can they not come to their own subjective opinion in which they've taken all the variables into account that they deem to be priority or have preference over something else, what they think is important or not important, and they come to the conclusion that, yes, I think this one player is the greatest individual player that has ever played this team sport we call basketball. So, to quote the great Kevin Garnett, right, anything is possible. And essentially, just because something is subjective or has over a million or 100 million variables, it doesn't mean that there isn't the possibility that there is a GOAT. For example, I'll use kind of like a non-basketball example. It used to be the widely held popular consensus among every human being in the world that humans would never be able to fly. That was their subjective opinion based on the variables of the time, that would never happen. That doesn't mean it's an impossibility. That doesn't mean it can't be possible that there is or isn't a GOAT. And once you accept the fact that just because something has a million variables or is subjective, it doesn't mean that there isn't the possibility of a GOAT, then essentially you've opened the door, we've gotten our foot in the crack of the door to begin the argument of let's rank players based on what we think are important variables. And just with that alone, we're already kind of starting to organize players, put things in their place, control for variables. We can take coaches, eras, money, styles, skill sets, awards, MVPs, rings, etc. We can throw all of that into the blender, and each person may be subjective in terms of how they weight that or they think it's important, but it doesn't mean that there isn't a possibility that one player may on average be better than everyone else. So for example, if I state that player X is the GOAT, the fact that it's subjective does not disprove that there is or isn't the possibility of a GOAT, whether it be in my own head, within the general population, or what have you. And also, to kind of counter what Rex says, isn't him stating that there is not a GOAT or that the GOAT is subjective not also subjective in itself? There's no ground to stand on, except the key difference being with my position, it's impossible to invalidate mine or a group of people's opinions, and that means it's definitely possible that there is or isn't a GOAT. Subjectivity or variables have no bearing on the possibility that there could be a GOAT. And I'll also end with this. Some things can be objective, absolutely 100% objective. Is Keith Van Horn better than Kobe Bryant? No, there's just no bones about it. And with that, you can begin to rank players, put them in their place. The logical conclusion is there could be a GOAT.
Rex, you're on the clock.
Alrighty. It sounds like somebody was prepared and wrote some stuff down.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I didn't. I just fly off the seat of my pants, top of my head. They're both usually pretty connected. The things I remember from that, when you talk about people's opinions, and you can have a consensus of opinions, I think is what you said or what you alluded to. It might not have been your exact words, but a consensus of opinion as to who a GOAT is, who the GOAT may be, that you can then formulate using whatever it may be. If there's 10,000 variables, 30,000 variables, 14 variables, that you can then use a scientific process to narrow those down, categorize those, and come out with a final computated answer, is I think what you're trying to say, right?
It doesn't have to be like science. It could be based on hairstyles. It could be based on things that really have no bearing on the game, but it's still, there could be a way to do it.
Well, then that doesn't make you the GOAT.
I wasn't necessarily arguing if someone is a GOAT based on hairstyle. I don't mean to take away his time.
No, I don't mind. But my point is, everything that you stated is opinion. And a consensus of opinion is still an opinion. Second thing, when you talk about people having a consensus of opinion, well, there's a thing, this is the thing I've noticed most about fandom. The one thing that fans have the hardest time grasping, comprehending, and processing is time, chronology. Fans really don't get chronology and get time. When you sit here and you take all these opinions, you're getting opinions of people who only saw certain things. They didn't see everything. Not everything is included. A better question, can there be a singular GOAT in any team sport, is the greatest player, is this conceptual GOAT? Can there be a GOAT if no one sees them? If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? I mean, how do we know Lenny Bias wasn't the GOAT? How do we know if he hadn't have died, he wouldn't have finished off with 18 MVPs, 18 scoring titles, 18 rings, and everyone just sing his praises forever and ever? How do we know? You know what I'm saying? How do we know? When you're talking about people's opinion and what they see, and this is why I always laugh about the eye test argument, is like, okay, well, did you see everybody? And they'll say, yeah, because they've seen like the 4 or 5, they've seen Magic, Bird, Jordan, So yeah, I've seen everybody. I've seen Iverson. I've seen Kobe. Okay. Well, did you see, LeBron? Did you see the dude that played on the playground in the 1970s up at Rucker that torched everybody, that no one outside of that neighborhood actually ever saw, but everyone who saw him will attest he beat everybody?
The GOAT?
Could he be the GOAT? Well, that's what I was getting to. Yeah, Earl Manigault, the guy that originally had the nickname the GOAT. But you see, that's what I'm saying. It's all opinion. It is literally all opinion.
All right.
I think my time's out, isn't it?
It's out. Yep. NNB.
All right, can I just make one more quick comment?
Yeah.
Okay, he had made the thing about, is Van Horn better than Kobe at playing power forward in the NBA? Yes, he was.
No. Kobe would have been a better power forward if you stuck him at power forward than Keith Van Horn.
All right, NNB, you are on the clock. Round 2.
So just to kind of reiterate again what I was trying to say is things being based upon an opinion or not does not disregard the fact that there can or cannot be a GOAT, right? People's opinions wasn't really what I was getting at. If you kind of a little bit proved my point in the fact that everything is an opinion, kind of at the end of the day, right? Technically, everything is subjective in some form or fashion. That does not mean there isn't a sliver of possibility that there can be a GOAT, right? The two, being an opinion or there being a GOAT, are totally unrelated. They have almost nothing to do with each other, right? And to kind of further drive home the point, you kind of had said, well, what if Lynn Bias went on this crazy 18-year run? Would he have been the GOAT? And I guess my question to you would be, would he be the GOAT? I mean, if he'd done that, I think people would say he is the GOAT, and there'd be no argument about it if he literally ran off 18 MVPs, 18 rings, 18, all NBAs and all this, and was first in points and first in steals and, had all these great statistical averages, or if he was first in everything, then he would be the GOAT. You're kind of like, you're kind of proving my point for me, right? And another thing is that every people coming to a consensus cannot just be subjective coincidence, right? There must be something that people are seeing, whether it be the eye test, whether it be a box score. You don't even have to see them play. You can look at the stats. You can hear stories. None of that really matters, right? And kind of the example I'll use is like if we take the MVP race and you take the top 5, let's just say top 5 candidates every year, year in and year out. Why is it that literally just about everyone would agree that those are the best 3 to 5 players that year? That can't just be coincidence or kind of just some opinion that's pulled out of thin air. There must be something people are using, whether it be eye test, statistics. You mentioned winning, right? If winning is your number one variable, then you've already opened the door up to the possibility of beginning to rank players based on your own criteria of, let's just say, winning, right? So if it's just winning, you're already beginning to build the house, the foundation for who you might think is the GOAT. And you're therefore opening up the greater argument that there could or couldn't be a GOAT. In which case, that would lead credence to the fact that there could be a GOAT, right? And again, if everything is so subjective, how come fans largely agree, on who the top 10 to 20 or 25 players of all time is? Of course, there's always going to be variance, right? There will always be a little bit of a difference. Somebody might weight scoring over rebounding or vice versa, but they're still going to have their own metric system or metrics in which they decide what their values or priorities are for determining who would be the best player of all time. It's completely subjective. You're right. I'm not arguing that. That's not my argument, right? And again, even if you put Kobe at the power forward, he would still produce more, play better defense. He'd get more rebounds if he had to play down low. He would still contribute more as an individual to the team sport of winning than Keith Van Horn would. He's just a better all-around player. And there's really just no denying that. You could put Keith Van Horn and Kobe both at center, and Kobe would still be way better than Keith Van Horn on just about every single level. And another sort of metric I'll use is recruiting, right? Why does Nick Saban and the same power schools, the best schools in the nation, go after the same 4 and 5 stars? It can't just be subjective coincidence that all of these guys rank these guys the same, or at least in some kind of same ether or stratosphere with each other, or tiers, or however you want to put it. it can't be subjective coincidence that people have the same group of guys named over and over and over, or are in their kind of tier one for the GOAT.
All right, Rex, you're on the clock.
Okay. Talking about the bias thing, saying that, well, if he did win the 18 and 18, then I'm defeating my own argument, because then he would obviously be the GOAT. But you see, you're missing the point, and I was hoping you would say that, because it didn't happen. It's never happened. And that's my point. Y'all are basing your decisions on things that happened with individual players. If Bias won 18 titles in a row, well, that means all his teammates would have too. That means the coaches would. That means Boston would have 30-something championships compared to every other, more championships than every other team combined. There are multitudes of facts that go along with that, which then prove that it doesn't make a singular GOAT. That was my point. I was waiting for you to bring that up. He didn't. No one has, and that's the point. It's a team sport, and those kind of runs don't happen. When you talk about MVP, saying these are the best players each year, year in and year out, that is true. Absolutely true. I agree with you 100%. But is the MVP from 1983 not as good as the MVP from 2013? How do you compare? Because they never played each other. They might have played different positions. They played under different rules for different teams. Actually, I don't know if who was MVP in 2003. If it was AI, then they might have played for the same team. But anyway, my point being that once again proves my point. The part of GOAT that fans don't get is chronology over time. Greatest of all time. You can compare guys that play against each other. You can compare guys that are on the court at the same time. I heard someone made an argument you can tell who the best player on the team is. Yes, you can. But is he better than the best guy on the team 20 years ago? Is he better than the best guy on the team in a different league? Is he better than the best guy that when they played head-to-head, the other guy was nursing a bad ankle and didn't have his side-to-side movement? Even when you compare, and I used this one time. I don't know if I can get it out in 1 minute. Let me give it a shot. If I'm an offensive player, I'm leading the league in scoring, and I'm a shooting guard. And the best defensive shooting guard is Dart, and he's covering me. And then at the end of the time, you say, well, who's better? And you compare our stats. And you say, oh, well, Dart has this, and Rex has that. And you're going back and forth comparing stats. Well, they played at the same time. They played head-to-head. They were directly against each other. These were the stats. But you don't have the same competitors, because I was being covered by the best defensive player in the league, Dart. He never got covered by the best defensive player in the league because it was him. So you still don't have a head-to-head, a straight-up matchup. There's always variables that cannot be answered, and it's a team sport. You can have every statistical record. If the rest of your team is lousy, it doesn't matter. It's a team sport. That's what it means.
All right, round 3. Nick, you're on the clock.
So just to use your last example there, like let's say you had one guy who was easily the best player on the floor, but his team sucked and he lost, right? We can all see who the best player on the floor is, right? And even if we go to is the 1983 MVP all the way to 2013, how would you rank them? I mean, we're kind of already admitting that at least someone who's in the MVP consideration is better than 95, 99% of the rest of the league that year, right? You're already putting in building blocks in order to separate individuals, players, etc., right? If Lynn Bias went off and the Lynn Bias example, right, where you're like, well, what about the coaching and the other teams? That is to assume that everyone contributes equally. We all know that doesn't happen in a team sport. A team is comprised of individuals, right? And you could, if you want to go with like your angle of things, right? Well, the individual who complements the team the most, who produces the most, who plays within the system the best, he would be the best player on his team. If an individual is over here doing everything better than everyone else within the team system and they're winning, etc., no team has anyone ever throughout the history of time who had people that all contributed the same, right? There are levels and differences amongst individuals on teams. That's as clear as night and day. We all know that, and that was kind of the point of my Kobe Bryant versus Keith Van Horn. Okay, if we want to, we can use like another example, right? Is Roddy Boubois, who was a point guard for the Mavericks for a short time, is he as good as John Stockton? Like, no, there's absolutely no way anyone would ever say that. You would be 99% or more in favor of John Stockton being a better player, right? So there's obviously ways we can rank guys. And once we start being able to sort of rank individuals and say, well, I like this and I like that, and again, it's subjective, you're opening the door to the argument that there can be a GOAT, that someone could have done it better than anyone else. And if you say, well, they didn't play against each other, it was different eras, all you're doing is listing another variable. We can do our best to account for that variable. We can say, this era was like this era was like that. Let's take it into account. Let's debate it. Let's talk about it. And who does that maybe favor or not favor? Or where can we maybe make some tweaks or adjustments, right? Even in your own head, the way you kind of are explaining things, even you're kind of providing the equation, and you're the one kind of ticking things off or saying this is here, that is here. This all opens up the door to the possibility, the smallest sliver. All I have to do is just make an example that there's a smallest sliver of a possibility that one individual might have been the greatest basketball player of all time. And the way we're talking and already saying hypotheticals and talking about XYZ, we're already beginning to acknowledge that it's possible that someone might have been so good at any number of things that they were better than everyone else. Taking into effect their team, their awards, their era. The list goes on and on. Again, a million variables. It doesn't matter. It still opens up the door to be able to rank and prioritize those things and be able to say, I think this guy was the greatest basketball player of all time, even if it's my own subjective opinion, because of A, B, C, D, E, and W, X, Y, Z, right? That's all I needed to prove in order to say that there's a possibility. There is a possibility that there could be an individual greatest of all time basketball player who actually went out and achieved things on the floor, showed it, era, players, coaches, whatever. And sometimes we're even able to compare. Like we can look at, Shaq, Kobe, and Jordan had the same coach, Phil Jackson. Well, that's one variable we can get rid of, right? He went and played for the Knicks, right? So why wasn't he so good on the Knicks when he coached, right? Et cetera, et cetera.
All right. Rex, you're on the clock.
All right, just something you said there. I got to throw this out there. It's not related, but is related. Your exact words were, "A team is comprised of individuals." Mm-hmm. I had a coach that had on his desk a plaque that said literally the same thing: "A team comprised of individuals loses." That directly popped in my head when you said that. That's just an old memory from like 40 years ago. But all right, getting back to it. But everything you're saying and you're admitting is subjective, okay? We're talking about a factual greatest of all time. Opinions are not facts. Subjective determinations are not facts. You can't just decide a fact. And that's what you're talking about. You're saying, yeah, I can look at all the variables and I can deduce them logically and give weight to, this or that, whatever you personally feel is more important, which proves my point. You're going off feelings and emotions, and then you can come up with your GOAT. And if people all do this the same way in their heads and most people come up with one player, then that must be the GOAT, because so many people have deduced commonsensically, in your eyes, that he was better than everyone else. But that does not make it a fact. The fact is the Earth is round. Well, it's not actually round, it's kind of egg-shaped. But the Earth is essentially a sphere. Well, 500 years ago, very few people believed that, or 700 years ago. People believed it was flat. The vast majority of people believed it was flat. Didn't mean it was flat. And if you said, no, it's round and it revolves around the sun, well, in some places you could actually get put to death for saying that because the church said otherwise. So just because enough people think it doesn't make it a fact. And I'm talking about a fact. And you can have an individual that dribbles better than anyone ever, shoots better than ever. You can take Kyrie's handles, Steph Curry's outside shooting, Wilt Chamberlain's inside dominance, Kareem's skyhook, Hakeem's all-around package. Put them all into one player. Doesn't mean he's the GOAT. He can be the most talented player ever. Doesn't mean he's the greatest ever. The point is for the team to win. That is what a team sport is. The team to win. You can have the greatest individually talented player. He can be the second greatest point guard ever. But on my team, I'm average. I'm average Joe, like the movie. I'm average Joe. I'm playing small forward, but I got the best point guard ever on my team. I got, the best center on my team. I got the best power forward ever on my team. They're not as good as this guy, this made-up player that we're talking about, who's the best, second best skilled in every skill. But he's got lousy teammates. If he doesn't know how to involve his teammates and make them better so that the team wins, then he ain't that great a basketball player. Okay? Being able to dribble 18,000 different ways like Kyrie does, and then going between your legs, around the back, spinning around, all that, and then before the shot clock goes off, going 1-on-4 and scoring does not make you better than John Stockton, who sees that open cutter and just makes a quick pass and bam, you score.
All right. Okay. It's time's up, Rex. Nick, you're on the clock. It's round 4.
So I think we're kind of talking past each other here. It's like everything you just said, I agree with, right? But again, in your own words, right? We can take all the things that you just listed as being important, and you would still be able to possibly come up with a GOAT. So in your opinion, right? You're right. It's not the most talented guy that is just automatically the GOAT or the most awards or whatever, right? It could be even a lesser player, but if he plays within I kind of mentioned this, if he plays within the team better than anybody and he produces the most or is like the engine of the team, then in your kind of own words, he would be the best player, right? And this is what I mean is that once you use any kind of variable or differentiation between players, right? So you're already, in your own words, you're differentiating players based on what you think is important. And I know things are subjective, right? And me saying there's a GOAT is just as subjective as you saying there isn't a GOAT. What you're stating isn't a fact either. Maybe there is a factual GOAT. Like, there's really no way to know. Maybe whenever we all die, God will say the actual GOAT was player ABC. Like, we just don't know either. Like, you have no more of a fact than I do. But to kind of just use your own argument, right? Let's say you have a guy, he's not the most talented, but he plays the game of basketball, however we see that as individuals from person to person, and he plays the game better than anyone, always leads his teams to a win, plays within the system, makes others better around him. Maybe he doesn't dribble the best, maybe he doesn't have the best shot. But according to you, right, in kind of your own words, if that's what he does better than anyone, then that would almost kind of, in theory, make him your GOAT. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say is that things being opinions are not what I'm getting at, right? What I'm getting at is that once any sort of person or a group of people can say, we think this is important, then this, and then this, and then this. Once you start doing that, players will begin to sift up or down or out to the left or right or however you want to see it. Once you start to be able to do that and you begin to separate players based on however we see the game of basketball should be played and whatever we call this game of basketball in terms of on the court, that means there will be better players and there will be worse players. And once you begin to do this, you open up the door for the argument, the smallest possibility that one of these guys might be better at all these things we just mentioned, might be better than everyone else at it, and he might be the best basketball player. He doesn't have to be the most talented. He doesn't have to be the best at any singular thing. But if he plays this game of basketball better than everyone else, he would be the GOAT. That's what I'm trying to say. Opinion really has nothing to do with it. It's more of the logical sort of, again, I kind of said, like, once you start building the framework, once you start kind of sifting through guys and you say this is important, this isn't important, you are opening the door to the argument that there could be a GOAT. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? And kind of like another example, just to kind of dumb it down, you go to the store, right? Everyone has their favorite food or drink, and there's a million variables that people look at. Price, taste, you buy in bulk, you get them cheaper per unit. There's a fad, one's on sale. However you decide to pick things and prioritize what drink you want, you're still coming to the conclusion that you have a favorite of all time. And we all do this. We all do this as fans on some level. And if you do that, right, if you do that, you are opening the door to the fact that there could be one drink that is better than the rest of them ever. That's just kind of what I'm trying to get at. We're kind of like talking past each other a little bit, I feel.
All right, Rex, you're on the clock.
Okay. Well, one thing you said in there was talking about your exact words, I believe, were "there's no way to know." Well, that proves my point right there. End of discussion. That's literally what I'm saying. There's no way to know.
There's also no way to know if there isn't a GOAT.
Yeah, if there's no way to know, then that you can't prove a negative. That's a scientific impossibility. The fact that you said there's no way to actually know who it is, to know for sure, not think, not opinion, not subjective, but there's no way to actually know. That's what I'm saying. There's no way to know.
That's your opinion.
No, that's your opinion. You said there's no way to know. That came out of your mouth.
No, I think there is a way to know for each person. You can somehow come to some conclusion, person to person.
That does not make a fact. That does not make a fact. And when you said start separating players and ranking players, you can't do that. It's a team sport. All of their stats were accumulated within a team. When Michael Jordan averaged 37 points a game, 37.6, I think it was, in 87. Okay, well, he didn't just take the ball down court and score 1-on-5. He was getting picks. He was getting assists from other players. He was getting a couple offensive rebounds. He was getting, breakaways, off teammate steals. It's a team sport. Every stat is dependent on another player doing something to get that stat. Oakley was grabbing rebounds, or Oakley might have been in New York by then. I'm not sure. I think he was still in Chicago. But guys are grabbing rebounds. Guys are setting picks. Guys are getting loose balls. Every player is D'ing up another player. Every stat, none happens in a vacuum. None of them. None of it is dependent on a single player. No play is dependent on one player doing one thing without help from everyone else on the court in one way, shape, or fashion. It is a team sport. Even if you could go down and say, like, by the argument so far, you can say, okay, well, then Bill Russell must be the GOAT because he won the most and he was able to do his thing without distorting the play on offense or defense. He didn't take shots away from anybody he didn't, what I mean? He played within the system and he played it perfectly and to such a level that as an average offensive player, he was the league MVP 5 times, which people always forget about. But that still doesn't make him the GOAT, because he still couldn't have done what he did without teammates, without Sam Jones, Bob Cousy, Havlicek. They all, people talk about how many Hall of Famers Russell played with, but they name every Hall of Famer that was ever on the roster. Okay, well, Jordan played with 6 or 7 Hall of Famers. They say, well, Russell played with 8. Well, Jordan played with 7. So, if you count them the same way, people count Arnie Rison because he was put in the Hall of Fame 40 years after he retired, 20 years after he died. He was Russell's backup for 2 years. He had a Hall of Fame career with another team before he was traded to the Celtics for his last 2 seasons. But they say, oh, well, he had this Hall of Fame teammate. Well, the guy sat the bench. He played 7 minutes a game with the Celtics. But they count that as Russell's teammate, Hall of Fame teammate.
All right, it's the final round. NNB, you're on the clock.
Okay, so, I mean, I guess we're just not going to agree on this, which is fine. But even if let's go back to the one, Russell played with this many guys, Jordan played with this many guys, right? Again, we're taking variables on and off and comparing them. And again, really the only position, in my opinion, that you can take is just to simply say it's impossible to know if there's a GOAT. Once you yourself start arguing all these other things, or saying, well, Russell won a lot, but he played with these guys, and Jordan won a lot too, but he played with these guys, and this is, I guess, just my opinion, you don't have to agree, but you are opening the door to debate, to say that this guy possibly could have done it better than the other guy. When I take into account all these things, I think that this guy, taken into the variables of Russell and the variables of Jordan, I think Russell's the better basketball player, however we want to describe that. You're opening the door, the small sliver of possibility that there could be a GOAT once we start deducing everything, or putting weight on things, or saying this matters or this doesn't matter, right? Again, back to my point. Is Muggsy Bogues better than John Stockton? No, he's not. There's just no way around that. It's supposed to be a sort of dumb question on purpose, right? There is just absolutely no way, when you try to take everything into account, that anyone would ever say in any realistic or serious fashion that they would take Muggsy Bogues or Roddy Boubois or some other just random point guard who sat the 12th man on the bench and say that they would take them over John Stockton, right? Well, how do we know that? Well, because we can simply, as basketball players, look at what's going on the floor. We can go to any number of things. And if once we sort of look at everything, and everyone, 90+% people, right? 90th percentile is a pretty good number to go at, which for that kind of comparison, Stockton would probably be 99%. We can look and say Stockton was the better basketball player whenever we look at everything. And I guess you would simply have to take the stance that we cannot tell the difference between Jordan and the 12th man on the bench, right? That's ultimately the stance you would have to take, in terms of saying, well, we don't know if there is any possible way to tell if there's a GOAT. We can't tell if John Stockton's better than this random 8th grader in Iowa, or we don't know if Michael Jordan's better than the 12th man on the bench on the Pacers, right? That's kind of the position you would have to take in order to say there is just absolutely no way we can tell if there's a possible GOAT in terms of basketball, right? If you want to take that stance, that's fine. But obviously, there are ways to deduce and tell what players are better than others, correct? It's just how it is. And we can use your way of doing things. We can use my way of doing things. We can then argue about which one matters most, or which one played the game better. Again, there's a million variables. I agree. It doesn't mean that there can't be a GOAT, right? And, what about an ISO play? What about when one guy just comes down and just scores a bucket on someone, Kobe, like a 15-foot fadeaway? What does team have to do with that? Nothing. There are ways to tell and deduce in situations, coaches, other players, teammates, awards, everything can be thrown in the blender, and we will still be able to somehow sift out players and who might be better than others. And once you do that, once you are able to say this guy is better than this guy as a basketball player all around, the debate for the GOAT has already begun, and it's already happening, and you're allowed to say, or maybe there's a possibility someone could be the GOAT.
Rex, you're on the clock. Last round.
Okay. Stockton is obviously better than Muggsy. Well, that one kind of hurts because Muggsy just tore me to shreds back in high school. I would say Muggsy's pretty close, just to make my own ego better. If there is a debate, like you said, once you start narrowing things down, you can start having the debate. If there is a debate, then there is no GOAT. Because that is literally what GOAT means, greatest of all time. That means no debate. And that's what a lot of Jordan fans, what I call Jordanites, say. Oh, there ain't no debate. There's no argument. He is. It's a fact. Well, no, it's not. And if there's able to be a debate, then there is no GOAT. That is the logical conclusion. When you talk about which players are better, once again, it's greatest of all time. Was Stockton better than Magic? Stockton better than Cousy? Stockton, in the end, will Chris Paul be close to Stockton in a lot of categories? The fans really struggle with the chronology, with time. You can't compare players that were dead when other players were born. There is no comparison. And if there is no comparison that can be made, there can be no determination of that comparison. It's all conjecture. Conjecture is not a fact. Conjecture is a theory, not a fact. Let's see. Talking about Kobe going down, grabbing a rebound, going down, hitting a fadeaway. His teammates had nothing to do with that. How many players were covering Kobe on this fadeaway?
Well, let's say it's just one and he makes the shot. It's still him. And if they double team him, then it proves Kobe needs two people to guard him.
No, that's wrong. That is 100% unequivocally wrong. Because if his teammates had nothing to do with it, he would have been covered by 5 guys, and he wouldn't have gotten that shot off. The reason he was able to take his man one-on-one at the free throw line is because the other 4 defenders had to respect his teammates and cover their men. Assuming it's an all-male team. Doesn't have to be an NBA team. Maybe he's playing with some WNBA players. But his teammates mattered, because if they weren't spaced properly, he would have been double-teamed or triple-teamed. The reason he hit a shot one-on-one from the free throw line, top of the key, wherever, was because his teammates did the right thing, had proper spacing, moved without the ball, and left him in a position to succeed. That's basketball. That's how I know how to play. That's how the game is played, not how fans watch it. That's how it's played. I don't watch the guy with the ball. When I would watch a game, I watch the guys without the ball. I watch the bench to see what the coach is yelling when they're bringing the ball up in the backcourt, which, by the way, people don't know that back in the 50s and 60s, the coaches were not allowed to yell instructions from the bench. That was a technical. Players had control during play. That's something that a lot of fans don't understand. So when it gets to the end, the fact is there is no way of deducing factually one player is greater than all others in a team sport.
All right, that is time. That was a great back and forth discussion.
That was fun.
I enjoyed it. Absolutely, 100%.
Your name? I'm sorry, I never knew your real name. It's Nick?
Yeah, Nick.
Okay.
Is your name Rex? I'm assuming your name's Rex?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if you guys want to do some closing remarks, or if you want to do rapid fire, that's all good and well either way. If you have anything else you'd like to say, then here's the time to say it.
If you don't mind, I have one little shtick about. It's not so much about like our back and forth, but it was kind of like a little shtick about basketball. How, in my opinion, right, of like the major sports like baseball, hockey, soccer, football, and basketball. Basketball would actually be, in my opinion, of the stance I was arguing, right? Basketball would actually be the easiest one to try and rank players, right? If you think about how the other sports are played, they're all on bigger fields. They all have more players. Players have much different responsibilities, and sometimes they're just total. Like, think about football, right? You just have one thing. You're trying to win just like one singular one-on-one matchup a lot of times, or you just have one thing to do. Like soccer, guys are responsible for massive different areas of the field. Basketball, in my opinion, we're talking about 5 people on your team on the smallest field to play, and you have a lot of the guys have a similar skill set. You have to be able to run 94 feet baseline to baseline. You have to be able to go sideline to sideline. Sometimes a center might have to guard a point guard. In that you have to play offense and defense. That's another big one. In my opinion, right, just sort of looking at the major sports, basketball is actually the easiest one of the team sports to try and look at players and look at what they were good at and what they could contribute to a team. And the variables are actually much smaller, in my opinion, in basketball than the other majors.